Giorgio had cooked as though the evening mattered, which meant it did. The small dining room was the one tucked off the main hall, 4 walls of old stone, a table that seated 6, dressed for 2, candles burning low. Layla stood in the doorway and took it in. Someone had made a decision about tonight. The flowers on the sideboard were fresh, the good wine was already open. Alex was at the sideboard when she heard her. She turned. She looked at Layla in the doorway. Cream dress, hair loose, grandmother's earrings, and something in her face did what it had been quietly doing all day without her permission. She handed her a glass and pulled out her chair and sat across from her and told herself this was just dinner. She didn't believe herself. They were careful at first, careful the way 2 people are when they've both decided to stop pretending and are figuring out what that looks like. Then Alex asked about the studio. Not, what do you do? She knew that. She asked, what were you building before all of this? And something about the specificity of it, the acknowledgement that there had been a before, that something real had been interrupted, opened a door in Layla that had been shut since she arrived. She talked, the real version, not the polished one. The collection 3 months from completion, the way pattern worked on her like a language. Her grandmother spreading a kilim across the floor when Layla was 12 and saying, look at what this is saying, not at the colors, not at the design, at what it was saying underneath all of that. Alex listened the way she did everything, completely. Glass untouched, eyes on Layla's face, not waiting for a gap to fill, but actually receiving what was being given to her. When Layla stopped, she held the silence for a beat. Your grandmother's earrings? Yes. She taught you to see beneath the surface. She said if you only looked at what was visible, you'd miss the whole conversation. Alex looked at her steadily. Is that what you've been doing here this whole time? Yes. And what have you found? I'm still reading. The corner of Alex's mouth moved. Not quite a smile, the thing that lived under one. The candles burned lower, outside the valley went dark. Neither of them suggested ending the evening, and Giorgio stopped appearing at the door, and Nico settled under the table at Layla's feet, and the night went on quietly around them, and Alex watched Layla laugh at something she said and thought, there it is. There's the thing I've been not letting myself look at directly. She looked at it now. It had been building all week, and Alex had noticed it the way you notice weather coming in. Not suddenly, not all at once, but in a series of small, unmistakable signs that you kept telling yourself meant something else. She had found herself in the garden on Thursday morning with her coffee, and no real reason to be there except that Layla was there with Nico. The 2 of them moving through the walled section in the early light, Layla crouched down, talking to the dog with the same attention she brought to everything, complete, unhurried, like Nico was worth the full version of her. Alex had stood at the edge of the garden for longer than she intended. She had told herself she was checking on the roses. She did not grow roses. On Friday, she had come past the kitchen and heard Layla laughing, a real laugh, low and warm, and had stopped in the corridor because she'd never heard that sound before, and it did something to her chest that she didn't file away fast enough. Marta had been telling her something about Giorgio's ongoing feud with the olive oil supplier, Layla laughing into her coffee, and the domesticity of it, the ordinary, settled warmth of it. This woman at her kitchen table making Marta laugh back hit Alex somewhere below the ribs and stayed there. She'd had 3 conversations with Layla that week in which she'd been the one to start them. She had also, on 2 separate occasions, walked past the library door on her way somewhere else and found a reason to go back. On Saturday, she had sat in the library across from Layla, who was reading, and done no work whatsoever. Just sat there with a report open in her lap, watching Layla trace a line in a book with one finger and tuck her hair behind her ear and frown slightly at something on the page, and thought, I am in serious trouble, and I have been for longer than I've admitted, and I have no idea what the hell to do about it. Nico had looked at her from the hearthrug with the expression of a dog who had worked this out some time ago. "Shut up," Alex had told him quietly. His tail swept the floor once. Alex had left before 8 on Monday. City meeting. Marta had set down Layla's lunch tray and straightened and said, not casually, nothing Marta said was casual, "She's meeting with Caruso this afternoon. He managed the agreement between the families." Then she left. Layla sat with that, between the families, the agreement. She turned it over the way she turned over patterns, looking for what was being said underneath the surface. Her father's debt had been called 18 months ago. If the agreement had been structured before that, before the default, then someone had decided the settlement before her father had even failed, which meant the failure itself might not have been the cause, it might have been the plan. She got up and found the estate records. They weren't hidden, they were just there, on the lower shelf, leather-bound ledgers, 40 years of the Romani family's business laid out in careful columns. She pulled the relevant years and carried them to the table and started reading. She was still there when she heard the car on the drive. Alex appeared in the doorway, still in her jacket, and stopped. She looked at Layla. She looked at the ledgers spread across the table. She looked at the years on the spines. She came into the room and sat down directly across from Layla. No armchair, no managed distance. She put her keys on the table and looked at the open ledger. "What have you found?" "That the agreement was in place before my father defaulted, which means someone anticipated he would or made sure he did." Silence. "Which is it?" "I don't know all of it. But you know some?" "Yes." Layla set the ledger down. She looked at Alex across the table, the jacket, the silver watch, the particular expression of someone choosing between versions of themselves. "I'm not asking you to defend it tonight. I just need to know, was I decided before I had any say in it?" Alex held her gaze. "There is a version of this I am not proud of." The room went very still. "Thank you," Layla said. "Not forgiveness, just the plain receipt of a true thing. For saying that." "That's all?" "For tonight, yes. I'm still reading." Alex looked at the ledgers, then at Layla, then, "Do you want company?" She slid one of the open ledgers across the table without a word. Alex picked it up. They sat across from each other and read while the valley went dark outside, and neither of them spoke, and the silence between them was the most honest thing that had happened in this house since Layla arrived. Past 11 when Layla finally closed the last ledger. She looked up. Alex had stopped reading some time ago and was watching her instead. The ledger closed on the table in front of her, expression open, the carefully maintained composure entirely offline. Layla stood and stretched. Alex stood too. They walked out together and down the hall, and at the foot of the stairs they stopped, the way they had stopped the night before. Only tonight, neither of them pretended it was nothing. Alex looked at her. Layla. Just her name, low and deliberate, like something held for a while finally being put down where it belonged. "Yes. Stay with me tonight. I want you there. I'm asking." The "I'm asking" landed. The care of it, the fact that she was making it a choice. Layla looked at her, the silver hair, the open expression, the woman who had sat down across from her tonight and said, "There is a version of this I am not proud of," and stayed anyway. "Yes, but I want to shower and change first. Give me 20 minutes, I'll come to you." Something moved in Alex's face. Relief. Want. The two of them together. "Okay." She went upstairs. Alex watched her go and stood in the hall for a long moment with Nico sitting at her feet, looking up at her. "Don't," she told him. His tail swept the floor twice. The room was quiet when Layla pushed the door open. She could hear the shower still running behind the closed bathroom door, the sound of water on stone, steam curling faintly under the doorframe. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her and stood in Alex's room properly for the first time. It was her entirely. Dark wood, clean lines, no excess, deep charcoal linen on the bed, a single lamp burning on the nightstand, the window cracked to let in the cool night air off the valley, a jacket on the back of the chair, the silver watch on the dresser, set down with precision. The room of a person who knew exactly who they were and had arranged their life to reflect it. Layla set her things on the chair and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the weight of the moment settling over her as she waited. The shower cut off. A minute of heavy quiet. Then the bathroom door opened and Alex came out with a white towel wrapped securely around her hips, another in her hands, working it through her damp silver hair, and stopped. She looked up and saw Layla sitting on the edge of her bed in a black silk nightgown, hair loose and dark over her shoulders, watching her with those steady, dark eyes, completely calm, completely present, completely there. Alex stopped drying her hair. Her eyes moved over Layla the way they did when she thought no one was watching, not quickly, not politely, but with the full, unmanaged attention of someone who had stopped pretending. The silk clinging to her curves, the dark hair fanned over her shoulders, the elegant line of her collarbone, the gold earrings still in. She stood there in her towel and she stared, and she didn't care that she was staring. Layla let her, holding her gaze with a quiet, devastating certainty. Finally, Alex crossed the room. She stopped directly in front of her, close enough that the radiating warmth of the shower washed over Layla's skin, and said, her voice a little uneven, rough around the edges, "Hey, you're here. You asked me to be here." A beat. The corner of Alex's mouth pulled in that specific, private way. "Yes, I did." She lifted her hand and laid it against Layla's cheek, a warm, heavy palm, slow and deliberate, and Layla leaned into it slightly, closing her eyes for a brief second before looking back up at her. "You've been wanting to do this for a while." "Longer than I've been honest about," Alex said quietly, her thumb tracing Layla's cheekbone. "Yeah." Layla reached up and covered Alex's hand at her cheek. She felt the slight sudden catch in Alex's breath, and then she rose from the edge of the bed, closing the absolute last of the distance between them. The first kiss was soft, slower than either of them expected, not urgent, not desperate, but deliberate, real. Alex's hand slid from her cheek into her hair, fingers threading deep through the dark weight of it, and she kissed her back with the full, careful attention she brought to everything she decided to do properly. Layla's fingers curled into the towel at Alex's waist, feeling the damp heat of her skin. They broke apart a fraction of an inch, their breath mingling. "Okay?" Alex whispered against her lips. "More than okay."
Marta came down at 6:30 as she always did, and found Layla at the stove. She was making coffee the proper way, on the flame, the way Marta had shown her, wearing a dark robe, hair loose, the gold earrings back in. She looked rested in a way she hadn't looked since arriving. Something settled, something present. Marta looked at her for exactly one moment, and then looked away and began taking things out of the refrigerator. After a while, "She takes it black, no sugar." "I know." Layla didn't look up from the stove. "She told me." Marta made a sound that was not a word and set the bread out and said nothing else, and quietly and efficiently laid the table for 2 people upstairs. Layla poured 2 cups. She took them both up.